and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, thank you so much for taking out the time to listen to me at the end of your evening. I know you're very eager to get out of here, but I will take very little time and be very, very efficient. When I was given the topic of what's next, I think they're just loading the presentation on there. What's next is a very, very difficult thing to answer. Why? Because realistically, even in India, through the age of astrology, we don't really know how to predict the future. No one really does. And what's really going to happen next becomes this very difficult predictive process. And I have an example for you. The first page, right on the first page, this is a magazine published in Germany in 1935 that tried to predict what's next then. If you see, there's a rudimentary version of the iPad, iPhone, smartphone technology that's predicted in 1935 by this technology, by this magazine. And that came true. There's another technology that was predicted, which was this large, self-driving sort of vehicle, which did not come true, but self-driving vehicles within the next 10, 15 years will come true, first on a Western basis and then eventually to the Indian landscape as well. But what's next is a difficult, difficult question to answer. However, I chose to answer that question for you in terms of what's next when it comes to HR management, not only in the Indian subcontinent, but globally. And in that spirit, I want to share with you, before we go to what's next, we have to look back. And we have to say, where are we now? If you see where we are now, at its core, every business begins as a family business. Even IT companies begin on some level as a family business, because some individual of a family decides to start that business, has emotional support, financial support, whatever support they can get to begin their journey as an entrepreneur. Family business, if you look at the board, I don't really like reading the presentation, but if you look at the board, you will see some of the statistics that are valid for family businesses, not only internationally, as by The Economist, but also in India. Family businesses, I mean, the statistics in orange are for India specifically by KPMG in 2013. And even in India, family businesses contribute to a significant amount of industrial output. Most people think family business are mom and pop shops, but that's very, very far from the truth. If you look at Uflex's history, Uflex was started by my father, the chairman of Uflex today, who is still very, very active in the business, by an equity of 2 lakh rupees in 1985. And I'm going to walk you through that journey and where we are today. But it's very important to understand that every business, at its core, at its beginning, is a family business, no matter where it evolves to next. The company I joined the company in 2008, right out of Accenture, after finishing my graduation in Boston. And here's the snapshot of the company at the time. And Uflex was a fantastic organization, is a fantastic organization even today, but was a fantastic organization even then to join because of a variety of reasons. How did they get to these numbers? Here's the DNA. The pros are in green, the cons are in red. But if I explain to you how Uflex became Uflex, it became because there was a very, very specific vision right at the beginning of the journey for my father and for the original employees of Uflex to give everything to make their customers' expectations come true. In packaging, when you pick up your pouch, the pouch has to work every time. Every time you open it, every time you tear it, every time you use it, it has to have perfect consistency. And it's a very, very demanding, dynamic product that has really no room for error because you're dealing with food. And there's really no room for error when you're dealing with something as vulnerable and as important as that. So there was a very, very specific customer focus. Capital projects were not delayed at all, ever. And if they were delayed, you got a call from central office saying, hey, you got to make this work. You got to make this happen. I don't care what it takes, but this plant goes live now, because speed to market was very, very essential. And what that did was, that kind of empowerment, that kind of commitment created this fantastic, loyal, and dedicated workforce right at the beginning. In fact, even now, sometimes when I walk through some of the plants, I'm really surprised to see people working in UFlex who have been working there for 25, 27 years, and who I recognize when I used to walk around when I was this small in the company. And that's something that I'm very proud of, but that's inbuilt into the DNA of the organization. Some of the negatives that happened because of the way UFlex started was that decision-making and power really started being controlled at the top. That's a very common story. If you see it, most sort of family enterprises, especially if you look at most Indian enterprises, you will see power really culminates at the top, and it's very little empowerment down the chain. But that really became true for UFlex and got built in the DNA. Empowerment, loyalty, dedication was something that was very prevalent to the top levels of employees, but that did not necessarily translate down the chain, and then started becoming a handicap. And then, of course, even though there was a fantastic speed of execution towards projects, opportunities were lost when the top leadership chose not to focus on certain projects or products, because you needed top management involvement in order to make things happen. So these were some of the pros and cons. Now, where does this DNA come from? Where does this DNA come from specifically? I will tell you, it comes from a wide variety of sources. And most people in the room will find this unconventional, but it comes from where our founders started. When a person, and most people are in this category, starts a company with nothing, no backing, no background, no family support, no financial stability, they have to decide to do everything how they need to do it from day one.